Hello again. My dad. I to this day, I get emotional thinking about my dad. Um, it's something about my dad that to this day it triggers me. My dad was Robert W. Dice. He was named after his dad. I was named Robert Anthony Dice after my dad. Um, but they all called me Tony growing up, so we wouldn't get confused. I know that everyone at work called my dad, Bob Dice. Um, when I was little, there were two dads. There was the happy dad who was high, and there was when the angry dad that was sober, and you didn't know which one you were going to get. He was so much fun when he was happy. He had an awesome laugh. He was a practical jokester. He was an incredible woodworker. I mean, he was gifted. The furniture he made, the customizations, the houses he made, his work was sought after. His existing work is still in museums out there. You can look him up. He's in a lot of publications, the work he did. He made an entire bar down in San Diego on Garnett Street. The whole exterior, all wood, interior, all wood, custom wood, and it burnt down. He was an incredible woodworker. I think my mom's dad, when they got married and they had to have a family, a condition that he put was if they were going to help them buy their first house was that he had to get a regular job. And so he became an egg delivery man. He was an egg man, he delivered eggs all over San Diego. And I think that affected him a lot. That was my impression growing up around the house. Um, he was fun dad when he was fun dad. He would do impulsive things, take us to the beach. You know, he's a big surfer. Um, I know he liked to smoke out a lot, and he drank, and um, but even as growing up, there were cracks, and I began to see them. I mean, my mom was a fierce spanker, and we were yelling at us all the time. And it been when my dad was angry, he was a really intense disciplinarian. He had two ways that he would discipline us. If there was a very calm, he would sit you down and very calmly describe to you what you did wrong and why it was important that you had a punishment. Very, very calm. So calm that many times I thought I was going to get out of getting a spanking. And then he would grab you and just spank the hell out of you. And he was so strong. And then the other kind of disciplinarian was when you were in immediate trouble, he was very angry. He would grab you and you would always take you back to the bedroom. And on the way, he would hitting you against the door frame and against the furniture and pick you up and throw you against the wall and bounce off the wall in the bed. And he'd hold you down and just spank the living hell out of you. And it was horrible, horrible. Or the belt. It was horrible. And I had anxiety and fear of that. And I would still act out. I would still risk that to get in trouble. And so I guess early on, my risk aversion, risk management, all those things, being able to, I have memories of my dad sleeping in his bed, and I'm sneaking into his room. And as he would snore, I would move across the floor, and I'd move across the floor, and I would slowly make my way through his bedroom into his closet. And every time he'd snore, I'd make my move, and I'd get up into his jeans hanging in the closet, and I knew he carried a lot of cash at work, and I'd fish out some dollars and money out of there, knowing, oh my gosh, the punishment was going to be so severe if I got caught, and that tightness to your chest as you're just on the verge of getting in trouble. I had that feeling my whole life of always getting away with something, always feeling like, you're in trouble, but you don't know what for what, because there's so many things that you had done wrong. And so, I mean, early on, there was this, I don't know, it's a game, but it was this sense of, almost always getting in trouble, sometimes getting in trouble, many times, not getting as much trouble as you deserved. That was a win, but it was just this idea that the punishment didn't stop me from doing stuff, even though it was so severe. And I guess it helped me learn how to still do stuff, even though there were severe consequences, and dealing with that anxiety and risk and that feeling of tightness in your chest about to get caught. Um, Gosh, he had an incredible garage with every woodworking tool in the world. When he was gone at work, I would go in there and I learned how to use all the tools, and none of them had safeties on them. Everything in there was dangerous, and I would get hurt and duct tape it up, and never, just learned how to use backyard medicine. Duct tape fixed everything, but keep working and building, and made booby traps and tree houses. And my dad let us have those rope swings in the backyard, which was incredible. Huge tree houses, like 12, 15, and 30 feet in the air, just, insane, no safety measures. We learned how to tight rope in our backyard, way up in the trees. I do think part of my dad he really loved our spirit of adventure, and that we were willing to take risk. And he never shut all that down. I'm so grateful that he let us do that. Other kids could not keep up with us in our backyard. We had 3 or 4 rope swings going at the same time out of these giant trees in our backyard, and big iron pipes going back at 10 feet up and then 20 feet up that we would walk across and tight rope on and play on. 3-layer tree houses. And we were always building things. And I would get in the garage and I loved making booby traps, and I'd make them and show my dad, and he would like, whoa, that's pretty, There wasn't a very strong communication connection between my dad and I. But when he did say things, I just sucked like a little sponge. I loved my dad so much. When I was about 9 years old, and this stuck with me, I remember working in our backyard together, as much as a 9-year-old can work. And he was working, tearing up some of the yard or something, and he stops and he's resting on a shovel. And he says, "I wonder what it would like to take a human life." And even as a 9-year-old, I remember that being just profoundly out of place of a thing to say. And just wondering how things felt. And just, I remember that hitting me in a weird, crazy way, and then he went back to work. And so there were random things like that just kind of etched into your soul. And, oh, um, gosh, my dad was not a saint. I remember like skateboarding up to 7-Eleven, and I see my dad's truck, his egg van up there, egg truck parked. And so I come walking up to the window and poke my head up at the truck, and there's like this hot chick, not my mom, sitting in the passenger side. And then my dad kind of like, whoa, and then the lady getting all uncomfortable, and she said something along the lines of, "I'm not going to be a home wrecker," and gets out of the car and leaves real quickly. And me, just being a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, just in there being able to kind of piece the pieces together, like that was not supposed to happen. And my dad trying to play it off, and I was like, I never figured out my dad did drugs. I remember learning how to get a coat hanger and pop the lock on my dad's truck, and stealing weed out of his truck and selling it to other kids in the neighborhood. And that, knowing that my dad couldn't come to us and say, "Did you steal drugs out of my truck?" But at the same time, I think he knew something was going on. My dad was a heavy smoker. He smoked almost his whole life. I remember I was in the back of the car. I loved the smell of him lighting the matches. He also loved 7-Eleven hot dogs. Did not take great care of his health, but he just always seemed, big and strong dad. He's being a dad now and having my kids. I'm knock on wood that none of my kids right now are near as problematic and gotten as near as much trouble as I did. I mean, my parents got phone calls from the police, from store owners, from me shoplifting, from the FBI, I mean, there were stuff, they put up with a lot of things that I would get in trouble for and have to go deal with. I was always into something. And so, I mean, I got in trouble a lot. And by far, I did not get in trouble as much as I should have because I was getting away with a lot more than I was getting busted for. But man, those consequences are so severe. And I think me learning as a young child to deal with increased risk, but still trying to get away with something just meant I had to be sneakier and more focused and make sure I didn't get caught. That high bar of punishment really made me kind of, increased my game. I had to really get better at being sneaky, get better at being, at lying, get better at all these things because the consequences were so severe. Um, like I said, my dad, he died relatively young. I'm older now than my dad was when he passed away. I think he was 48, 49 maybe. And he, we were all on a trip to Southern California, and he stayed home. And I remember him calling my grandparents. They lived in Southern California, and they asked. My dad said he was checked in the hospital because he had trouble going to the bathroom, and they diagnosed him with colon cancer and pancreatic cancer, and it was 1 month from diagnosis to death. And that whole previous year, he had lost a lot of weight and it seemed like he was getting in really good shape, and that was the cancer eating away at him, not getting checked. But 30 days from diagnosis to death, I was not home the night he died. I was in Southern California. I got the phone call from my mom that he was not doing well. Get home quickly. I drove all night through a storm. My windshield wiper's not working. Just drive as fast as I could, and I missed his death by 3 hours. That haunted me for many, many years. Like all the kids trying to come home, and it was a very ugly kind of death. I did not take it well. I missed my dad. He missed so much of my life, so much. That has always kind of haunted me over the years.
If you've made it this far, it means you're hungry for more. I got 3 things for you. Click on the links below. For 1, get on our mailing list. You can pre-order the book coming out this summer. 2, our Patreon account. You get tiered access to exclusive content. And 3, visit our social media sites. There's a lot out there I want you to see. Do it. Do it now.